Selamat Shang. Perkenalkan nama saya made Sangka. At Mage. Kilas Management 23 NPM 234111079. Izin mempresentasikan tugas. Mata Kuliah Pengantar Akuntansi. Kertas Kerja. Kertas Kerja, Penjurusan, Fungsi, Tujuan, dan Cara Penyusunannya. At the end of each period or year, a company is required to prepare financial reports, at least regarding the profit/loss report and balance sheet. To collect all accounting data, a working paper is needed. 1. Understanding working papers. Working paper is working paper that contains columns specially created to collect all the accounting data needed when a company prepares systematic financial reports. This balance sheet is not a mandatory document, but is a tool whose function is to facilitate financial reporting. Because it is not a mandatory document, this worksheet is optional. In other words, a balance sheet may or may not be prepared depending on each company's policy. If the company chooses to create a work balance sheet, then this document will be useful for checking whether the calculations are correct or not. Kertas Kerja. Penjurusan, Fungsi, Tujuan, dan Cara Penyusunannya. Selain itu, Kertas Kerja juga berfungsi untuk mengurangi human error atau kesalahan karena terlupakannya memasukkan salah satu ayat jurnal penyesuaian. Informasi yang disusun berupa angka-angka yang saling berkaitan dari neraca saldo sampai dengan laporan keuangan juga akan terlibat jelas dalam neraca ledger. Begitulah penjelasan mengenai kertas kerja. Sebagaimana dikutip dari buku Pengantar Akuntansi Ola Khairul Azwar dan buku Pengantar Akuntansi 1 Ola Wadarianti. Bagian yang termasuk kertas kerja. In practice, the columns in the work balance consist of 5 main parts, namely as follows. 1. Trial balance. 2. Adjusting journal entries. 3. Balance sheet after adjustments. 4. Profit and loss calculation report. 5. Balance sheet. Tujuan buku besar. The purpose of compiling a ledger, as quoted in the book Excel for Accounting Easy, Fast, Accurate by Sabaran M.A.K., is as follows. 1. To facilitate the preparation of financial reports. 2. As a medium to see estimates that occur in the company's daily activities so that management can control every company expenditure to support its activities or operations. 3. To make it easier to classify and summarize information from the trial balance and adjustment data, so that it is a preparation before preparing formal financial reports. 4. Makes it easier to find errors that might be made in making adjusting journals. Bentuk buku besar. Neraca ledger mempunyai 4 bentuk, yaitu neraca ledger 6 column, 8 column, 10 column, dan neraca ledger 12 column. Namun, yang seringkali digunakan oleh perusahaan adalah neraca ledger bentuk 10. Dikutip di buku Pengantar Akuntansi Konsep Dasar and Praktik untuk Perusahaan Jasa and Dagang Olah adalah sepsiana, terdapat format bentuk pada keempat neraca ledger tersebut, yakni bentuk buku besar. 1. Balance sheet in 6-column form, consisting of columns, account number, account name, balance sheet after adjustment, debit and credit, profit and loss, debit and credit, balance sheet, debit and credit. 2. An 8-column balance sheet, consisting of columns, account number, trial balance account name, debit and credit, adjusting journal, debit and credit, profit and loss, debit and credit, and balance sheet, debit and credit. Bentuk buku besar. Neraca bentuk 10 column, terdiri dari column. Nomor akan, nama akan, neraca saldo, debit dan credit. Journal penyelesaian, debit dan credit, neraca saldo setelah disesuaikan. Debit dan credit, laba rugi, debit dan credit, dan neraca, debit dan credit. 4. Neraca bentuk 12 column. Terdiri dari column, nomor akan, nama akan, neraca saldo. 3. Neraca bentuk 10 column, terdiri dari column, nomor akan, nama akan, neraca saldo, debit dan credit, journal penyelesaian, debit dan credit. Neraca saldo setelah disesuaikan, debit dan credit, laba rugi, debit dan credit, dan neraca, debit dan credit. 4. Naraka Bentuk 12 column, Terdiri dari column. Nomor akan, nama akan, Naraka Saldo, debit dan credit. Journal Penyelesaian, debit dan credit, Naraka Saldo Setila Disesuaikan, debit dan credit. Laba Rugi, debit dan credit, Modal, debit dan credit. Dan Naraka, debit dan credit. How to prepare working papers. When compiling working papers, it cannot be done haphazardly. Detailers. If it is not arranged neatly, this can make the reader confused. As for the correct way to prepare a worksheet, here is the explanation. Quoted in the book Starting to Learn the Basics of Accounting by Eka Satria Wibawa, s.com. 1. Fill in the account number and account name columns. 2. Fill in the trial balance column. The trial balance column is filled in based on the estimated balance contained in the general ledger before posting the adjusting journal or based on the trial balance. 3. Fill in the adjustment column. The adjustment column is filled in based on the adjusting journal made on the basis of adjustment data obtained at the end of the period, end of year. The purpose of compiling a ledger, as quoted in the book Excel for Accounting Easy, Fast, Accurate by Sabarin M.A.K., is as follows. 1. To facilitate the preparation of financial reports. 2. As a medium to see estimates that occur in the company's daily activities so that management can control every company expenditure to support its activities or operations. 3. To make it easier to classify and summarize information from the trial balance and adjustment data, so that it is a preparation before preparing formal financial reports. 4. Makes it easier to find errors that might be made in making adjusting journals.